Do you remember when they say that family is the safest place in the world? A lie. The biggest lie I've ever heard. Because it was inside my very own house, in my childhood room, with dolls on the shelf and drawings on the wall, that my brother did to me what even the devil wouldn't have the courage to do. And my father. Well, my father always thought the sun rose and set on that boy. Even today, at 70 years old, I still hear that harsh voice saying, "Making things up again, girl?" Stop making things up. As if the belly that grew inside me at 14 was just my imagination. My name is Emma Lisbon, but you can call me Mrs. Emma. I was born in 1955 here in Finger, Tennessee, at a time when children didn't have a voice, especially girls. A girl had to stay quiet, obey, and be grateful. Today, sitting on the porch of my simple but honest little house on this hot July afternoon, I decided to tell a story I've kept for almost 6 decades. It's not a pretty story, I'll warn you right away. It's one of those that twists your stomach, that makes you want to cover your ears. But it needs to be told, because I know there are many girls out there going through the same hell I went through, thinking they are alone in the world. If you're listening to me now, tell me in the comments where you're from. I want to know if my story is reaching far, if there are people from all corners listening. And please, if you can, give a like and subscribe to the channel. Every like, every comment gives me strength to keep talking about what many people prefer to sweep under the rug. I remember it like it was yesterday, the first time I realized something was terribly wrong in my family. I must have been about 7, playing house in the backyard when I heard my father yelling at my mother in the kitchen. It wasn't new. He was always yelling, but this time was different. "Martha, stop spoiling that girl. She needs to learn that in this house I'm the boss. I and Michael." Michael, my older brother, 5 years older than me. Dark hair, tall since he was a kid. Green eyes, I don't know where they came from. Everyone in the family had brown eyes. The neighbors always said he was too handsome, that he was going to break many hearts. Little did they know that the first heart he'd break would be mine. And my father, John Randall, was one of those men born in the wrong era. He thought women existed to serve, that men don't cry, that a son was worth 10 daughters. He worked at the nuclear plant. I'm not sure what exactly, but he always came home smelling of whiskey and cigarettes. When he was in a good mood, he ignored me. When he was in a bad mood, well, it was better to disappear. My mother, Martha Randall, was a saint. Small, her hair always tied in a tight bun, calloused hands from washing clothes for others. She tried, poor thing. She tried to protect me as much as she could, but against my father, there wasn't much she could do. "Stay quiet, my daughter," she would whisper when Daddy started yelling. "It will pass." The house we lived in had 3 rooms, a living room that served for everything, a bedroom for my parents, and a small room in the back that was mine and Michael's. At first, when I was very little, we got along. He taught me to climb trees, fish in the stream behind the house, whistle. But as I grew, things changed. It started slowly. A hand that passed where it shouldn't. A strange look here, another there. I didn't understand. I was just a child. I thought it was normal for a brother to want to hug his sister so tightly, to want to sleep in the same bed even though he had his own right next to it. My mom would sometimes walk into the room in the middle of the night and see him in my bed. "Michael, go to your bed, boy." But he always had an excuse. He was scared of thunder. He was cold. He missed when he was little. My father thought it was beautiful. "Look how they love each other. Now that's a united family." And he'd pat Michael on the back proudly. After all, he was the perfect son. He played baseball like him, drank like him, cursed like him. They were cut from the same cloth, father and son, partners in everything. I, on the other hand, was the dead weight, the girl who was born when they wanted another boy, the walking disappointment. My father didn't hide that from anyone. That one was a miscalculation. he'd say to his friends, pointing at me, but what can you do? It was God's will. The first time I realized something really strange was happening was on an Easter Sunday. I must have been about 9, wearing a yellow dress my mom sewed. The house full of people, uncles, cousins, everyone gathered. Everyone saying how beautiful I looked, how I was turning into a young lady. Normal, right? Family stuff. But Michael didn't like it. I saw it in his eyes. A sudden anger, that way of gripping his soda cup so tightly, his fingers turned white. When everyone went to the backyard to grill meat, he pulled me aside. "You think you're looking pretty, huh? Want to get attention?" I was confused. Attention from who? I was just there quietly eating my piece of cake, but he kept going. "You're mine, you hear? Mine. I don't want to see you giving attention to anyone else." Mine? What do you mean, mine? Brothers aren't supposed to own the butt that day. At that exact moment, something changed. The way he looked at me was different, possessive, dangerous. And I, even though I didn't fully understand what was going on, felt fear. A cold fear. I tried to talk to my mom. "Mom, Michael is acting strange with me." She was washing dishes, her hands full of soap, her face always tired. She stopped for a second, looked at me, and I saw it. I saw that she knew. I saw that she understood. But I also saw the fear in her eyes, the same fear I felt. "This is all in your head, honey. Your brother loves you. He just wants to protect you." And she went back to scrubbing the dishes with force, as if she could, along with the dirt, wipe away the truth that the two of us knew but couldn't say. That's when I understood something terrible. I was alone. My father on his side, my mother too scared to do anything, and me, stuck in the middle, a 9-year-old girl having to deal with a monster who slept in the room next door. Things got worse. He started coming into the bathroom when I was in the shower. "I forgot my towel," he'd say, but he'd just stand there staring at me. I'd curl up in the corner, trying to cover myself with my hands, but he wouldn't leave. "What's the problem? I'm your brother. You don't need to be ashamed of me." I started taking showers with my clothes on. Seriously. I'd go into the bathroom with my clothes on, lock the door, and only take them off inside the shower. Even then, he'd find a way. He'd break down the door saying he needed to use the bathroom. My mom would complain about the broken lock. My dad would say it was my carelessness. The nights were worse. Much worse. He'd wait for everyone to fall asleep and then come to my room. At first, he'd just sit on the edge of the bed, run his hand through my hair. "You're beautiful, you know? The most beautiful in the family." I'd pretend to sleep, squinting my eyes, praying he'd leave. Sometimes it worked. Sometimes it didn't. When I turned 11, everything fell apart. It was on my birthday, actually. My mom made a simple cake, cornbread with strawberry jelly. Just the 4 of us sang happy birthday. No party, no friends. My dad gave me an old doll he found somewhere. It's time to get rid of these silly things. But here. Michael gave me a necklace, cheap plastic, one of those dollar store ones, but he made a ceremony out of it for my beautiful little sister. And he hugged me in front of everyone. A hug that lasted too long, squeezed too tight. I felt his hand slide down my back and stop where it shouldn't have. I looked at my mom, desperate. She turned away. That night, he came to my room again. But this time was different. This time, he didn't just look. "You're a young lady now," he whispered in my ear. "It's time to learn some things." I shook so much the bed trembled. I tried to scream, but he covered my mouth. "Stay quiet. If you scream, I'll tell Dad you're giving yourself to Mike at the store. Do you know what he'll do to you?" I knew. Of course I knew. I'd seen him hit my mom for much less. One time she smiled at the gas delivery guy and got beaten for a week. Imagine what he'd do to me if he thought I was offering myself to the boys in the street, like he said. So I stayed quiet. I bit the pillow and stayed quiet, while my brother did things to me that to this day I can't say out loud. It hurt. It hurt so much I thought I was going to die. But the pain in my body was nothing compared to the pain in my soul. Knowing that it was happening and no one would help me, the next day I could barely walk. My mom noticed, of course. "What's wrong, Emma? Why are you limping?" I lied and said I had fallen. She didn't ask anything else, but when Michael wasn't around, she put antiseptic on my wounds. Her hands shook, silent tears rolled down, but she said nothing, never said anything. From that night on, it became routine, 2-3 times a week, sometimes more. He'd wait for everyone to fall asleep and come. I learned to shut off. It's amazing how the mind can leave the body when it needs to. I imagined I was a bird flying, free in the sky, that I was anywhere but there, in that bed, with that weight on top of me. My dad still thought Michael was the greatest. The two of them went out to the bar together, came back drunk, singing. "This is my son," he'd shout to anyone who would listen. A real man, not like this faded girl, Emma. I was visibly wilting. I stopped eating properly, stopped talking. At school, the teachers asked if everything was okay at home. I just nodded. Yes. What was I going to say? Who would believe me? Michael was the darling of everyone. Handsome, polite, helpful. He helped the ladies with their bags, played ball with the neighborhood kids. The perfect son. No one suspected the monster he was when the doors closed. There was a day when I almost told everything. It was to Mrs. Johnson, the neighbor. She was different from the others. She didn't have a husband, lived alone, worked outside. The other women spoke badly of her, said she was a lesbian, that she wasn't respectable, but she was always kind to me. "Emma, dear, you're not well," she said one day, finding me crying behind the church. "What's going on?" I opened my mouth to speak. The words were right there, on the tip of my tongue. My brother. He does things. But then I remembered my father, what he was capable of doing, not just to me, but to my mom, to anyone who got involved. And I stayed quiet. "It's nothing, Mrs. Johnson. I just fought with a friend." She didn't believe me. I saw it in her eyes, but she didn't press. Years later, when it was all over, she came to me. "I knew, Emma. I knew and did nothing. Forgive me." I forgave her, of course. What could she have done? Back then, no one talked about these things. It was family business, forbidden subject, shame carried in silence. When I turned 13, my body started to change. Breasts growing, hips widening, menstruation arriving suddenly, and it scared me because no one had ever explained anything to me. My mom gave me some old rags and said, "Now you're a young lady, take care of yourself." Take care of what? I was already taking all the care in the world, and it didn't help. Michael got even worse with the changes in my body. It was as if I had turned into a more valuable trophy. The nighttime visits increased. Sometimes he didn't even wait for everyone to fall asleep. He cornered me in the bathroom, in the pantry, in any dark corner of the house. "You're getting hot," he'd say. "Soon the boys will start surrounding you. But you're mine, remember? Mine." I was an object, a thing, his private property, registered and stamped, and the worst part was that everyone seemed to agree with this. My father always said, "Michael is the one who will choose who you're going to marry. He knows the boys in town, knows who's decent." Marry. Little did he know that the only man who had ever touched me was his own son. The breaking point came on a December afternoon. It was hellishly hot, the kind of heat that makes everyone irritable. My father had gone to work. My mom was washing clothes in the river. I was home alone. Not alone, with him. "Come here, Emma. Let's take advantage that we're alone." I tried to run, but he was faster. He grabbed me by the hair, dragged me to the room. This time I fought. For the first time in all those years, I fought. I scratched, bit, kicked, but he was stronger. He was always stronger. "Now you think you're brave, huh? I'll teach you a lesson." The lesson hurt more than all the other times combined. When it was over, I was bleeding. A lot. He looked at the bloody sheet and shrugged. "Clean this up before Mom gets home." But I didn't clean it. I couldn't even get up. I stayed there in that red pit, wanting to die, wanting to disappear, to evaporate, to cease to exist. That's how my mom found me. Her scream still echoes in my ears, a scream of horror, of pain, of guilt. She knew, of course she knew, she had always known. My God, my daughter, my God. She hugged me, rocked me like when I was a baby. "Forgive me, my dear, forgive me." That day, something inside her broke. Or maybe it fixed itself. I don't know. I only know that she picked me up, carried me to the bathroom, and washed me carefully. Then she bundled up our clothes. "Let's go," she said. "Where to, Mom?" "I don't know, but we have to leave here." But we didn't leave. When we were at the door, bags in hand, my father arrived. Drunk, as always. He saw the scene. Understood right away. "What the hell is this?" My mom tried to explain, stammered, cried, begged, showed the blood, the wounds.
My father listened in silence. Then he looked at Michael, who had appeared behind him. "Is it true, son?" Michael shrugged. "Emma's making things up, Dad. You know how women are. She's probably jealous because I got a girlfriend." And my father believed him. Or pretended to believe him. Or simply didn't care. He slapped my mom so hard she fell. "Stop protecting this whore. Want to run away? Go." But the girl stays. "Someone has to cook and clean this house." My mom looked at me. I saw the exact moment she gave up. On me. On herself. On life. She dropped the bag on the floor and went to the room. We never spoke of that day again. Life went on. The nighttime visits continued. My body kept being invaded. My soul, dying slowly. But something had changed. I was no longer the scared girl who bit the pillow to avoid screaming. Now, I was a survivor, and survivors do whatever it takes to stay alive. Even if inside, they've been dead for a long time. That's how it works in a house where the monster has the protection of the king. Where the queen is too weak to defend the princess. Where screams are muffled and tears are invisible. That's how a girl learns that family can mean hell. And the worst was still to come. The year 1965 started differently. I woke up on January 1st with a twisted stomach. But it wasn't a New Year's hangover. We didn't even celebrate anything at home. It was nausea. The kind that comes out of nowhere and makes you run to the bathroom. I thought it was something I ate. Little did I know that this nausea would change the course of my life forever. January flew by. The nausea kept coming, especially in the mornings. My mom noticed, of course. Moms notice everything, even when they pretend not to see. "Are you eating spoiled food, girl?" I shook my head. We didn't even have spoiled food. We barely had good food, let alone spoiled food. It was on a Tuesday in February when it hit me. My period was late. Very late. I was never very regular, so at first I didn't pay much attention. But when I added the delay to the nausea, the sore breasts, that strange craving for pickles with peanut butter. My God, no. It couldn't be, but it was. I remember the panic. Sitting on the bathroom floor, counting on my fingers how many months it had been since my last period. December didn't come. January didn't either. February was halfway through, and nothing. 3 months. 3 months carrying that inside me. The panic was so intense that I vomited right there. But this time, it wasn't pregnancy nausea. It was pure terror. 14 years old. I was 14 years old and pregnant by my own brother. How was I going to tell this? To whom? My mom already knew about the abuse and did nothing. My dad would say it was my fault that I seduced Michael. And him? What would he do when he found out? I decided to hide it. There was no other choice. I started wearing the loosest clothes I could find. My dad's shirts. Loose dresses from my mom. I tied rags around my belly, tightening them until it hurt. Anything to disguise the bulge that was starting to appear. But a child's pregnant body doesn't hide for long. It was my mom who noticed first, of course. One morning in March, she walked into the room while I was changing clothes. She saw the belly already showing, the swollen breasts, the stretch marks starting to appear. Her face lost all color. "Emma, my daughter, I started crying. It was the first time in months that I cried for real. Not the silent cry I learned to make so I wouldn't bother anyone. I cried, sobbing, until I ran out of breath. Mom, I didn't want this. I swear I didn't want this. He always. She hugged me. Hard. Like she hadn't done in years. We cried together there on the cold floor of the room. Two women broken by the same tragedy. We have to tell your dad, she finally said. The blood froze in my veins. No, Mom, for God's sake. He will kill me. And what do you want me to do, Emma? Soon it won't be possible to hide it anymore. She was right. At 4 months, it was already hard to hide. At 5, it would be impossible. But fear was stronger than reason. Let's wait a little longer. Just a little longer, she agreed. Poor thing. She was also terrified of my dad. But she started taking care of me secretly. She saved extra food for me, made teas to relieve the nausea, rubbed oil on my belly to prevent too many stretch marks. Michael kept coming to my room. It's surreal to say this, but he didn't even notice. A man sometimes can be as blind as he wants to be. He did what he did and left, without noticing that my body was changing, that I moaned in pain, never in pleasure. Never was, because everything hurt more with the baby growing inside me. But at home, it was getting harder and harder. It was one night in May when everything collapsed. My dad came home drunker than usual. He fought with my mom over the cold dinner, broke 2 plates, kicked the dog. Michael tried to calm him down, but even the favorite son couldn't stop him this time. "Where's that whore, Emma?" he yelled. I was hiding in my room, praying he'd forget I existed. But that day, I wasn't lucky. He broke down the door. He saw me curled up in the corner, trying to cover my belly with the shawl. He took 2 steps toward me and stopped. His eyes went from my face to my belly, back to my face, then to my belly again. "Take off that cloth." "Dad, I told you to take off that cloth?" With trembling hands, I took off the shawl. I stood there, the 5-month belly visible under the thin dress. The silence was worse than any scream. He turned red, purple, his eyes bulging out of their sockets. When he finally spoke, his voice was low, dangerous. "Whose is it?" I opened my mouth, but no sound came out. I asked, "Whose child is this?" How was I going to answer that? The following months were a daily punishment. The baby grew, and with it, the fear, the shame, the hatred all mixed, forming a knot in my throat that never untied. In August, I could barely walk. My feet were swollen. My spine felt like it was going to break in half, and my belly was trapping me more than any wall. Michael kept hovering around, and my father pretended I didn't exist. My mother did what she could, in silence, trying to help me without being seen. It was on a suffocating September night that I felt the first contraction. A shock in my back, then another, and then the fluid flowing down my legs. "Mom," I called softly, breathless. She came running, her eyes wide open. "It's today." It was 16 hours of pain. I screamed silently. I bit a cloth so I wouldn't draw attention from the men in the house. My mom did everything alone, like she did with the other women in town. She cut, pulled, prayed. I thought I was going to die, but I didn't. Amid the blood, sweat, and tears, he was born. Charles, small, fragile, with dark hair and green eyes. Eyes that immediately reminded me of Michael, but somehow they also seemed to say, "Save me." My mother placed the baby in my arms, and I felt love. Not the automatic love from a soap opera, but a love full of anger, pain, and desperation. A love of war. A love that promised to protect, no matter the cost. Days later, something unexpected happened. A social worker showed up at our house. Someone I still don't know who had made an anonymous report. Maybe Mrs. Johnson. Maybe a teacher. Maybe God. My father tried to block the visit. He shouted, made a scene, but it was too late. The social worker saw the baby, saw my face, saw my mother's eyes, and understood. Michael disappeared for 2 days. When he returned, the police were waiting. They asked questions. I told them everything. Everything. Michael laughed. They won't believe her. She's a liar. She always was. But my mom didn't stay quiet. She told too. She told what she saw. She told about the blood on the sheets. She told about the years of silence, the horror, the omission, the guilt. That day, she was free too. Michael was arrested. The case became a scandal in town. My father tried to throw us out of the house, but it was him who ended up being expelled by public opinion, by the neighbors, by shame. The whole town saw who he really was. My mom and I were taken to a shelter in Nashville. There, for the first time, I experienced peace. A safe place with psychologists, nurses, women who called me Emma with affection, not with contempt. Charles grew up in a new environment, healthy, without shouting, without slaps, without fear. Years later, with help from the shelter and a protection program, we changed our names and moved to a new town. I became a new person. I started from scratch. I worked as a cook, then as a seamstress. I studied at night. I earned a diploma, a dignified life. Charles never knew who his father was. He never knew the hell he came from. To him, I was both mother and father, and that was fine. He grew up loving, just generous. He became a physics teacher. Today, he has 2 children. He calls me the strongest woman who ever existed, but he doesn't know everything. And that's okay, because this story I'm writing now, here, for you who are listening, for you who, maybe, are going through something similar, for you who need to believe that there is a way out. There is. Mine came in the form of an anonymous report, but it can come in a shout, a note, a look, a neighbor, a shelter, a miracle. It doesn't matter how. What matters is that it exists, and you deserve to find it. If you're listening to this now, share, like, comment. Not for me, but for all the Emmas still locked in their rooms, afraid to sleep, afraid to wake up. My name was Emma Lisbon, but today, I am just a mother, a grandmother, a survivor, and finally,